Okay, almost always, people who talk about near-death experience concentrate on big numbers and 8 million and 600 and going down corridors and seeing lights and having wonderful experiences, and they concentrate on sameness. How could all these people have seen something similar? And so critiques are often of that, almost always of that kind of response. And I think they deserve to be critiqued. I think, first of all, people don't have the same experiences. What you have is a sliding scale where, contrary to what you can read in popular magazines, maybe only 20% of people see tunnels. Maybe only 50% see lights. So first of all, everybody doesn't see the same thing. And secondly, like I said, a very good critical comeback is, this is common biology. You know, if we could stimulate the right temporal lobe and get some of these same experiences, then they're not objective. When you propose the whole new method of talking only about cooperative experiences to build your case, there are virtually no takers by way of critique. Now, sometimes I'll say things like this. Well, you know, stories get bigger with time, and they could have heard people talking after the fact, and maybe if you get them a year later, the stories got out of hand, and maybe they did hear somebody say, you know, and those are good responses. People are not necessarily good reporters. But therefore, like with Katie, who comes to, and the doctor's right there in the room reporting those things immediately, a lot of these cases are things that were I think your fourth case is one where a little child reported something right on the spur of the moment about knowing what happened to his mother and Peter, his brother, in a fiery car wreck. And the little boy came to for a minute, and the doctor was sitting by his bed, and she said, "How are you feeling?" And the boy said, "I'm doing okay." And he smiled, and he said, "Mom and Peter said I can come with them." And he died. Well, his mom had died at the site of the accident, but the two boys didn't know that. And the other boy, Peter, had been taken to another burn center, and he was taken to this hospital, so they were separated. And he said, "Mom and Peter said I can come with them." Well, Mom had died, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, I don't know. She had died earlier. And when the doctor got up and walked past the nurse's station, the nurses said to her, "Doctor, we just got a call from the other hospital. Peter died 10 minutes ago." This little boy. So when you want to get reports that are real fresh, where people don't have time to talk, where they can't listen to things, but that's about the only kind of critique you have, that you know, we are amazingly poor reporters. So you just want to get cases where people report things that are odd, that they wouldn't normally know, that you could check. You want to get them soon before the thing builds up. That's about the only kind of critique I'm aware of, and very few people even say it. There are so many of these things out there, so many of the evidential ones, and some of them are not terribly evidential, some of them are very evidential, that I think just by just weight of the evidence, people are starting to get affected by this. And you have people like A.J. Ayer saying, "I'm still an atheist, but I'm open to life after death now." You know, something beyond the ordinary seems to be going on. I should tell you that the agnostic medical doctor, the guy who had the 7 heart attacks, that guy's a Christian. The agnostic pediatric brain specialist in Washington who saw Katie, he has found like 20 more evidential cases. He is not a Christian, but he is now a theist. He's now a theist. He says there's no question there's a God out there and there's life after death. So here's some examples of professionals who've been moved against their views to another position. So, I mean, I don't want to be dogmatic and say it has to indicate this or that. We can only talk in terms of probabilistic data, but I think it's kind of impressive. But generally, to answer your question real short, people don't normally give evidential cases, and the critics don't respond to the evidential cases. They give and respond to the general cases, which I don't think are evidential anyway. Yes? Like you're supposed to die once or something like that? Right. Yeah, same one. Mm-hmm. Okay, question is, what about heaven? What about the Bible? Are there experiences of this kind? Okay. Question is, how do you tie this in with what the Bible has to say? I think you did a very good job. I think there's several cases where there are near-death phenomena reported in the Bible. And you're right. If you go back and look at the timing for Paul's being left for dead outside of Lystra when he was stoned by a crowd of people, they left him for dead to be buried, and then he wasn't dead. That does work out. He gives the timing in 2 Corinthians 12, where he says, I know a man 14 years ago, and then he says it was him. He says, twice he says, whether thou art the body or in the body, I know not which, but I went to heaven. That sounds very much like a near-death experience. You've got Stephen in Acts 7, who, when he's rushed out and stoned, he has this, says he saw Jesus standing on the right hand of God. You do have the case you're talking about, Luke 16, where you have the rich man and Lazarus, where there's a little phrase there that's really interesting. And Lazarus, this is not the Lazarus of John 11, who died. It's another man named Lazarus. Lazarus died and was carried by angels to Abraham's bosom. Now just think about the little description. Died, carried, angels to a nice place. And you have this experience. I mean, it may or may not be what people are talking about with, experience and that kind of thing. I can think of those cases. And by the way, there are near-death phenomena throughout the world in a number of ancient books. In fact, there's even a near-death experience reported by Plato in Plato's Republic. He gives a quite elaborate case of a soldier who they thought was dead, and they come back on the battlefield to burn these bodies, and the guy's still alive, and the guy talks about seeing souls going to hell and going to heaven. It's in book 10, I think, of Plato's Republic. There are a number of these in the ancient world, a lot of them. Yes? Okay. Question is, interesting data for life after death and for God, but it looks like it goes against Christianity because everybody's what? Okay. Well, first of all, everybody's not experiencing. First of all, these people are saying that these are good experiences. We don't know. That's why I keep using heaven in quotes. We don't know if this is heaven or hell. But you don't have to be a Christian to say, have a body that's been thrown out of a car and been in serious pain and serious injury, and then all of a sudden say you're in a state where you're painless. I mean, when people use I felt wonderful language, doesn't necessarily mean they were in heaven. But you're right. There are a lot of cases from people who you would not think are Christians who say they have great experiences. We responded this in detail in both of our books, J.P. Moreland and I. And I'll say this to you too. I gave you one hell case. There's a number of hell cases. In fact, the medical doctor, when that guy passed out 7 times and kept saying he was in hell, that medical doctor has theorized that there are a lot more negative experiences. In fact, first of all, he told me himself. He said, I have more hell cases than heaven cases. He told me. Now, to be fair, he's the only guy who says that. But he said he had more hell cases than heaven cases. But he thinks when people don't report anything, many times they could have had negative experiences and don't report them. Like he said, remember he came to the guy a couple days later and said, tell me about this hell thing, and the guy said, I don't remember. He said, come on, you kept talking to me. He said, well, I don't know, I may have said that, but I just don't have any memory of it. The doctor thinks that they were so, I told you his hair was standing up on end. He thinks the guy was so scared he may have blocked it out. But there are a lot of reasons people can report good experiences. I'll be glad if you want to come up. I'll be glad to go into detail with that and give you some options. There's a number of things I could say. I can't go on too much longer, but I will give you, some of you have to go to class, I understand, and I got to end this pretty soon. But I'll be glad to chat with you if you want some specific details. We give 3 or 4 specific responses, other responses beyond the ones I just gave.